Do you guys have Dutch Brothers? Any of you?
No.
We
So
had it in Phoenix, and I have a gift certificate in my wallet that I've had for
Send it
2
over.
years now. I should mail it to you. I can't use that shit.
Although their whole thing is like how they talk to you and stuff, and I'm like,
Oh yeah, I
not
don't
my
like that
vibe.
either.
Don't
do
want a
you mean?
conversation.
Is
Dutch
that
Bros?
like Dick's Last Resort? Is
It's
it the
like
same idea?
they're
It's
like,
like, hey, bro.
hey, bro. Yes.
They're like, how you guys?
What
So they
What are
walk
you
up
up
to your window. And
today,
they're like, how you
girl?
guys doing today?
Yeah.
Oh my
what are you-
gosh, isn't it so nice? They're told to like chit chat with you before, and then if you're caught at the window while they're making their drink, they'll lean out the window and just talk to you the whole time.
I hate
And
it.
my window's like.
I hate it so much. I'm good with a like partial, hey, how are you doing? But
Yeah.
the over the top,
I don't want
like,
a conversation. No.
no.
And it's all
No.
really like California, like
Yes,
what up, bro?
Especially
Yeah.
before I've had the sips of this mofo. I've already paid for it, and now you want to chit chat me before I take some sips?
Hello and welcome to Table for Five with no reservations. Take a seat at the table for a fresh, sweet, salty, tart, and pleasantly bitter conversation.
Hello, and thank you for taking a seat at the table. Tonight we are bitching because that is what we are going to talk about tonight. Actually, I prefer Tabitha's name with the bitch, but we're not using that. So thank you for taking a seat at the table with us today. Joining me is Rachel Flanagan.
Hey, everybody.
Tabitha Cabrera.
Hello.
Jamie Ramos.
Hi.
Kim McIsaac.
Hey.
And I'm Jen Dunn. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
I think this is going to be a really cool episode because when we always talk about things where it's everything that we do is like to the extreme. Traveling, Tabitha, 5 things to note. Same with my sister-in-law. It's like morning, noon, night, bowls, but like all of the things. I was complaining about something the other day and I was like, why is everything always so much work to do? 79,000 pieces of paper to fill out for one thing, all of those things. So who wants to start off? What you, Rachel Flanagan?
I think a couple of things come to mind when I'm just like, we cannot bitch about this stuff without being in the company of each other. The other day, I watched a kid walk on a sidewalk, period. That's it. Who's walking on a sidewalk? A child on a sidewalk. And I was like, like I had a visceral, physical, full body reaction to this fact that this kid has no no parent, no aid, no CPA, no PCA, no anything on the sidewalk. The kid's on the sidewalk. And then you realize like, oh, this is typical. The sidewalks are actually there for people to be on because people have free will and ability to know safety and function next to the street. This is so cute. Like that's what that's for. I remember that. It's like stuff like that. It doesn't piss me off that little Jacob was on the sidewalk necessarily. It's just that it's so goddamn jarring that I can't. It's like because we live so closely in this world. You guys are my friends that I chat to about the happenings. I have friends that I go out with that are also special needs moms locally. I live so in this that like sometimes you don't realize that there's sidewalks in the world, like just for people to use. I mean, I'm just so far. Anyway,
That'll catch me if I see a girl sort of my daughter's age, Kaya's age, walking home from school, or if I see the kids riding their bikes. I'm like, safety. She could never just go ride her bike, which was another thing I got upset about, like about myself was that, I couldn't just go get her a bike. I had to find a special bike, 3 wheels, and I know bikes in general are expensive because holy bananas, like a freaking speed bike. Who knew those were so expensive? But like everything is just so much more, trying to find a bike that she could balance and ride was like, it's like you just set out on a mission when you need to do something. It's like you set out on this mission to figure it out, and it's like exhausting. Tabitha Cabrera.
This came up for me because I recently went to the park with a friend of mine who invited me and Nora while Nixon was in school to meet up with her son and her son's little bestie at the park. we go there, the 3-year-olds are like holding hands and like they took a long walk to get to the park. We parked right in front of the playground. And I knew before we got there, it might be a rough situation because Nora didn't want to get dressed and she didn't want to go anywhere. And I was kind of like still wanting to go. And I knew like if you get her outside, it's usually fine. But it's a new park. We go to the park. There's a long fence along the park playground. Nora starts wandering, which usually I let her go a little bit of a distance, knowing that there's a fence there. I could still see her. Well, then I see her turn the corner and I realize that the fence had stopped. They stopped the fence. There's just like an opening at the end of the fence. So she goes around the fence. There's literally a drop off into a freaking ditch of water. So I take off running. The second I see her kind of round the corner, drop my bag. My friend picks up my bag, get her away from the danger, drop off. So then she's mad because I got her away from there. And then we walk down further. We cross a bridge. She can see the ditch water. So then we start throwing rocks into the ditch. Then she wants to get in the ditch. And then these little boys are like following us around. And she keeps trying to wander back to the ditch to get into the ditch water, which is probably like at least 5 feet deep, I would say.
She's like, I found a pond, Mom. What the
yes.
heck?
So then she's like
let me go
taking
in
her.
and-
wanting
She's
to
like, do
take
you
her
want to hear my list of things that I'd like to bitch about? I find a perfectly good lake and my mom won't let me swim.
Yeah. So then she's like trying to take her clothes off at the park to get into the ditch. At this point, we're like, I want to say 2 or 3 blocks away from the car now. So then I have to maneuver her from the 2 or 3 blocks all the way back to the car. It was a whole thing. But something as simple as like, let's go to the park and meet some friends and play on the playground for an hour before your therapy. And then she's dysregulated. Then she was supposed to have therapy. I'm like, there's no way we can do therapy now. That like, there's no way. It's going to be horrible. So just little things like that is like so much preparation and it can go awry like so quickly. And then you just feel horrible because I kind of knew that she wasn't down for what was happening, but we have this pretty regularly where we get her to the car, we get to the place and everything's fine, or okay. I didn't expect for them there to be like this freaking 5-foot deep ditch water
It's a ditch
right next to a
No.
playground.
And half a fence.
Yeah, and this is, like my friend wasn't judging me. Like we've been friends for a super long time and she was being so kind and whatever, but you still feel like all the people, she's like screaming, and you feel like all the people at the park are watching you and you're just like trying to get to the car. She's getting so big now, like it's everything. It's the adjustments for school, like preparing for that, how much preparing you have to do for school starting, then the aftermath of every decision that you make. I got to go on this vacation where my sister watched my kids, but it was 5 pages of notes specific to like foods, how you make the foods, how they go to bed, what to do if there's a issue, just like so much information. And then you have to prepare before you go. You have to prepare afterwards for the aftermath of you being gone because there's all kinds of emotions and dysregulation from that. And it's sometimes I feel like we always pay for the fun, even with my kids. Like if they have a good time doing something, there's usually an aftermath of like coming down from that excitement and that pleasure. It's sad. It is kind of sad,
Mhm.
I just got like that same feeling, Jen, where I'm like, why is everything so hard?
Well, like even when we go to, the amusement park, my friend brought her little Lulu thing. That's it. I have a freaking backpack. I have 2 iPads in it. I have headphones. I have freaking snacks I know she's going to eat. I have extra water in the event that we can't go, if there was a line to, like, I just don't know. I'm schlepping around this bag that is like heavy as
Yeah.
and it's
yeah.
like she's walking around with little Lulu because it's got her debit card and her keys in it. And I'm like, oh man, just everything is to the extreme.
And then everything she says, the kids listen to. There's no like, please don't eat that Skittle from yesterday from someone else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely my kid would not do that because that would be disgusting. But I know what point you're making. Like, and she would need a Skittle, but that's beside the point. But yeah, like everything, traveling, an extra suitcase full of snacks. Again, because When we go to California, I do my Instacart orders, whatever they're called. Thank you for teaching me, Rachel Flanagan. But again, certain things like the ruffles have different colors. The bags
Yeah.
are different. The US has light blue bags. We have dark blue bags. So things like that I have to be prepared for. So again, I'm bringing an entire carry-on with me on vacation that I wouldn't necessarily need to bring. It's just everything is extra steps to everything.
And
you know, there's
I
really
will
no
say-
ease of just going out the door.
Yeah. And I will say, as Nixon has gotten older, it's much easier to take him out compared to Nora at her age now. And I
Yes.
remember this being this hard with Nixon at this age as well with him, you know. But now that he's gotten older, it's less of that. For him, it's more like preparing, and the anxiety about what's happening next comes for him now. But at least like the danger level has gone down, like somewhat, you know, not completely, but a lot less than, you know, a freaking drop off with no offense. Like, just...
Today I took Jesse to the grocery store with me, and Isaac usually every week goes grocery shopping, and he's been taking Jesse with him, which is great because it's like teaching him life skills. He's usually a little better for Isaac, but today I had to go do the shopping, and I was home alone with Jesse, so I had to take him with me. And I thought about that a lot. I was like, well, it used to not even be possible. Like Isaac's worked over this last year to get him able to go to the store outside of a quick run, which is like amazing. But then I'm still like, I'm trying to be positive about it, but I'm still at the store with my 8-year-old child. And I know most moms don't always love taking their kids grocery shopping, but that's usually because they're asking for things or they're, you know, begging. And we don't have any of that, which I guess is nice, but I'm still holding on to my 8-year-old like he's a toddler, and he's running up and down the aisles. Like, he doesn't want to grab anything or want anything, but he's just all over the place and running into people. And then as he gets older too, it's like then more people are staring because they're like, why is your 8-year-old acting like this? And he's vocal stemming a lot and jumping and all this stuff. And it's like, which is like, fine, great. I want him to be able to be himself. But at the same time, it's like, but we also need to like not bump into people and accidentally hurt someone walking down or accidentally get run over by a cart. I always call it like the guiding, where you're with your child and he's walking on his own, but I'm like having to guide him and like be a bumper everywhere I go. And I'm just like, this is just exhausting. My body's just the whole time is tense from doing, you know.
It's so much more. It's so much more. And also he's 8, so it's not like he's 4. It's not cute anymore to people that are seeing this kid bounce, right? I think about that with Kaya being 13. I'm like, she's not this cute little girl anymore, you know, standing in the line, and she has been vocal stimming a lot. So I know what you mean, Jamie.
And I find when Tabitha had said this, and I've said this, like I've written many pieces like that led with this, which it's autism is never simple. And it's not the things that like, I know if I've never been to a park before, never been to a beach before, like there's all these things that it's like you in your mind, you know, okay, they could be this, you could be this, you try to like come up with all these different scenarios, but it's things that are like just other people don't think twice about. Like people be like, let's just go here. Like, no, we can't just get up and go because this might be the day that Alyssa just decides she doesn't want to be dressed, or this might be the day that she decides that whatever it is. It's like we had 2 things this weekend, literally this weekend alone. There's 2 things that I can think of, and one was we had my son's dog. We dog sat. So of course sometimes when you step back, it's like not really, you could be like, well, I guess I can see why this is problematic. But so I
do that all the time, Kimmy.
My son is going away for the night, and my daughters are going. My son, his girlfriend, my daughters, and I don't know if somebody else was supposed to watch the dog and like last minute couldn't, and he was stressed out. My husband was like, we'll take the dog. We'll just take her to our house and it will be fine. And Alyssa does like animals, so he thought like she would get a kick out of it. And we don't have animals now, but we've had a dog in the past, but we're talking like 12 years ago. So it's been quite a while. And she didn't want the dog in the house. She wanted nothing to do with the dog. And I think she just clearly didn't understand why the dog was even there. Like, I'm sure it made 0 sense to her, but it's like something that like he didn't think twice about. Also, he didn't tell me, so I was not able to at least prepare Alyssa, although I don't think that she would have really understood. And she didn't want the dog near her, and of course the dog's excited, it's running, it's jumping. She eventually settled down. Alyssa eventually settled down and was like, okay, whatever, the dog's here. But like, who knows, in her mind, she might be like, is this our dog now? Like, you just don't know what she's thinking, right? So when my son initially came, and my house is not really doggy proof or child proof. She eats a lot of stuff. So like I was really kind of worried about like her like eating something or choking, but she was actually pretty fine. But they crate her like at night and stuff. So my son brought the crate in when he first dropped her off, and Alyssa flipped out, and I'm like, just leave it outside. We'll figure it out later. And she was in her room, and I told my husband, I'm like, set the crate up while she's in the other room. And I'm not even kidding you. It was the littlest clink that you can even imagine. Like he didn't even do anything yet. He just had it in his hand. She immediately started screaming at the top of her lungs. She ran. I go, oh nope. She knows exactly what that sound
Oh,
is.
nope.
Yep, she came right out of the room. She made it very clear that she did not want the crate in the house. But like, we have to crate the dog. Like, she can't be unsupervised, you know? So we're like, okay, she'll just, I mean, blood curdling screams. Like, I'm surprised my windows didn't break. Like, she didn't stop, and she just kept pointing to the door. She kept pointing to the door. She even went as far as to go outside and pointed to the ground outside of like our stoop, and almost like, no, put her here. And it's like, no, we can't put her outside. And she just doesn't understand. And it just became this whole distressing situation. And not because of the dog, like the dog was actually fine, but just because it didn't just mesh with Alyssa's world. It just didn't mesh with like what she was expecting, what she thought. We had an instant where we had my daughter's boyfriend sleep over because we all went to a wedding and they were drinking. So we're like, he can sleep over, that's fine. Alyssa went out of her mind. We didn't even think of it. We didn't even think like she would care, notice nothing. And like today we went to a water park, which Alyssa's just really funny about. Like she doesn't want to do anything when you ask her to. So now we just kind of do it, and we don't like, we're not huge on the preparing as much as we used to be. And she got in the car and something set her off. And then something else set her off. And then she was yelling. And everything you fixed, she started yelling about something else. And it's just like we're going to a water park. We're doing something fun, something expensive, something
Yes,
and
you're gonna
Something
love it.
expensive.
You're gonna
something
love
that
it.
like
Yeah.
she does enjoy anything to do with the water. She loves water slides, she loves the pool, she loves the lazy river. It's something I know will be enjoyable to her when we get there. But then she's yelling. And then my daughter Lexi she just can't handle the sound. So she gets set off by the yelling. It's a small space. It does, I get frustrated too, but I just try to like not really show it, because then Alyssa just feeds off. If you're like raising your voice, she feeds
Yeah.
off that. And it's just like this whole thing. And then Lexi was getting very frustrated, and I think it's part of her ADHD that she like has an issue with the sounds. But she turns to her, she said, Lulu, you make it too hard to do anything. And like tears just immediately sprang in my eyes, because it's like I was thinking the same thing. So it's like I'm not like, I wasn't like mad at her, but it just made me feel like she felt like she was a burden, and I hate that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want her to be a burden. And it's like, here we are. I'm trying to do something fun. It's the last day of summer. It just should not be this hard. It should be like, oh, but everything she doesn't want. It started off when she came in my room this morning, and I had packed a bag with like bathing suits, towels, and she saw it in my room. The second she saw it in my room, she started getting upset. She didn't want it in our room. So then I meant to put it in the car before she got up, but like I didn't make it out there yet. Then she
Where?
didn't want, stop it. Then I send Neil outside to bring it to the car, and she flips out. Now she doesn't want the bag outside of the house. So it doesn't belong in my room, but it also doesn't belong outside. So it's like these are just the things that can just like set the day off.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it should just be simple. You get in the car and you go somewhere. Like it shouldn't be all this. She's yelling. Lexi's like ready to like literally jump out of the car. I'm crying. Like it's just, we
Yeah.
haven't even gone to pick up my niece yet. So that's like a whole
Yeah.
nother like debacle that we gotta
Layer.
get
Yeah.
through. And I don't know. It's just so hard.
And
And
once you get to that point too, it's like the whole trajectory of the day. You know what I mean? Like it just carries through the day
but it's
until
like,
there's a moment to like decompress and come down from it. If you're at home or if you're able to like remove from the situation or whatever is needed, food, snack.
well, it's so
We,
funny when you say that, Tabitha, because like Alyssa has a very weird way about her where when all this stuff happened, I'm telling you, she was distressed, throw herself on the ground, screaming. I literally had to send my husband out of the house because like he was gonna lose his mind because he was getting so frustrated. He can't, it's the screams. He can't handle
Mhm.
those.
Mhm.
She's screaming, I mean, has tears pouring down her face, which Now she's upset that her father's mad at her. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
this whole thing, she can't calm herself down. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she walks over the table and she's pointing to something. And I'm like, we had gotten Chinese food, but Alyssa didn't eat yet. And I'm like, what is she pointing to? She's pointing to a plate. Like you or I would not, like, I would never be able to eat after being distressed like that. Like, there's just no, I mean, when I came down from maybe later that night, and I'm like, oh my God, she wants to eat. So it's like, you can't even like disrupt. It's
Mhm.
like the routine still has to happen because
Yeah.
like now
Yeah.
she's like, oh, because obviously we brought the crate outside of the house and the poor dog had to be like, we just kept her leash on and put her leash around the kitchen chair to like, she couldn't go anywhere. And she slept under the kitchen table. But yeah, she's like, okay, good, crates outside. That's what I wanted. Now, now on to the next. And
Down
it's
to
like,
the Chinese
I like
food
it.
like,
people.
yeah, it's just
I'm ready for a skewer.
she snaps right back to like, it's so
Yeah.
crazy. And then even today, we finally got to the water. I mean, thank God, it was only a half an hour drive. It wasn't that far. And then she's fine. She gets out. She's fine.
Mhm.
Like she was never upset. Like there was never this
Mhm.
all this screaming. Like there was never all
It's the
this
reset.
chaos in the car.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna
You're-
say next is like then you're waiting for the next because in those moments when stuff like that happens, then the rest of the day, if something goes awry, it's most likely gonna get to the 10 immediately. There's
Yeah.
gonna
Or
be no
Celie
build up
will
to
have
it.
the reset and I don't. So I'm
Yeah.
still sitting at an 11 and she's like, yeah, I had some snack and this is what's going on. And I'm like, like
Yeah.
I can't I
Or
mean,
you're
I
fighting like it happens too with like then me and Neil are fighting about it because then I'm
Oh.
mad about how he's reacting. He's mad because I'm giving her away or whatever like it might be. Like this is just an example. So
Yeah.
everything's fine, but now we want to kill each other still.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's like you said, it's so hard to like get everybody back to, you know,
it's
Let's
also
go to the
such
water
a
park,
thing. Like,
people.
well,
you
she
know,
and she's like, I should have taken my own car and met you there. Blah 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 blah. Like, oh yeah, this is such
yeah,
great
I'd
fun.
like to do
Like,
that too.
Says
It's
no.
so frustrating because in the case of the dog, you have this like, oh my God, it's going to be this hard for the whole time. Kind of like building, like the anxiety is there and stuff. Whereas in the car, you're like, oh my God, what is this going to lead to? So, like, even though this is brief and it's short, we're eventually going to get someplace or mom's going to pull the car over, as sometimes happens, you know, like it's temporary. Whereas, like, the dog staying feels like 36 weeks, even though it's like one overnight, you know?
I know. I was like, and then in the morning with the dog. So then Alyssa was fine. She was fine. She got used to the dog. She gave her a couple treats. She was good. Then in the morning, the dog was whining. So the dog's under the kitchen table. She starts whining at 6:30 in the morning, like this little. I
She
can't
have to
even.
pee, maybe?
No, she just wanted people. So she's not used to being like when she's home with my son and his girlfriend and they're there. He has a 1 bedroom apartment, so they're with the dog all the time. She sits up on the couch with them, you know what I mean? So she's not used to not being with people when people are there. So
Mhm.
she starts whining. And then Alyssa immediately wakes up and hears the dog whining and she's like, "Wah!" So she starts yelling because she's like, why is this dog still here?
And then
You
did
said
you start whining?
you said she
Number
was going
3.
home tomorrow. And then of course now the dog really starts whimpering because there's this person. I think she didn't understand what to make of Alyssa too because she was so like, she's a banshee basically. And then she starts screaming and then the dog's like crying more and it's like 6:30 in the morning and I'm looking at my husband and so he like gets up, he tries to like calm the dog down or whatever. He's telling Alyssa to be quiet. I'm like, why is this my life right now? Like, why is this happening? I was up until 3 and now I'm listening to Alyssa screaming and the dog crying at 6:30 a.m. and I'm like gonna lose my mind.
Yeah, that is my
Like,
And then
waking hour.
Neil, the one who offers to take the dog and doesn't even tell me, I had to find out from Lexi. Lexi goes, oh, you're dog sitting. And I go, no, we're not. She goes, and he goes, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you we're dog sitting. He gets
God.
up and goes to the flea market. Now I have Alyssa and the dog all day
Yeah.
while he's at the flea market.
Did he get anything good?
Everything's fine. Who cares, Rachel? I don't know. He did get us some kind of car. He showed me 2 little cars he got outside of that. I don't know. He probably got a knife because he always gets a knife when he goes. And he did bring me home lunch. So
Well,
was
I mean, that
fine.
makes up for everything,
he
really.
brought me home Jersey Mike, so I was happy. But
Mm.
That sounds good right now.
And I thought about I was like, no one else has to do this. You just register your child to a school. And I just put my daughter back in public education and I filled out about 19,999 pieces of
Yeah.
paper to get this kid enrolled. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Why is everything so friggin' hard?
Honestly, I'm about to, like, the only thing you don't give them is a stool sample, which I'd be willing to give them the next time they ask me
I
about
mean,
something. And
yeah.
here's this bonus. You're welcome. You've had everything from me now. Thank you.
And I hate to say this, but it really just makes me jealous. This is the thing that makes me so jealous of other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
It's not even the big things. It's not the fact that my kid's
It's the
disabled.
little
It's
things.
not that
Yeah.
she's like isn't going to be able to live a normal life. Like, you know what I'm saying? Not to say those things don't get to me sometimes, but it's these little things, like the ease that people can navigate their lives and, you know, without thinking twice about it.
I always say that, and then I have to, you know, because you know me, I'm very quiet demeanor, and I, you know,
Yes,
like
I
keep
mean, we
things
can
really
look at you
tight-lipped.
normally.
But I've often wanted to write, like I'll see people that have a neurotypical child, and I'm just gonna say this is like a grain of salt, so please know that. But like you're bitching about taking your kid to soccer or something, or ballet or whatever it might be, and you don't understand the ease of what you're doing and how lucky you are that that is the only thing you need to worry about. And I know that parenting, I want to be clear, I don't have a typical child, but Kimmy and Jamie, I'm sure typical, I'm sure it's a lot of work as well. So please know that I'm not
Honestly,
diminishing that.
sometimes they're harder. I'm not
But
gonna
it's
lie.
like it's the work, you know, it's that extra level of worry on top of everything. And it so when people complain about things like just the simplicity of things that they're doing with their children, I literally want to jump to the screen and like strangle them because everything, even going to the grocery store, takes work, planning, like exit strategies. You got to read the room. You know, just being prepared for those things. There's
And it's
just
like the
nothing that's just
unpredictability,
simple.
right? Like
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
can just because there are times that you can do it, right? And there's no problems. And then you get a little cocky because you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
we can
Yes.
do this. This
Yeah.
is fine. We got this in the bag. And then it's like, autism's like, oh no, you don't. I don't want you to get too complacent. So
Hold my beer. Yeah.
I'm just gonna
Yeah.
show you what can actually happen when you least expect it. And then you're like, oh wow, okay, great.
I feel
Well,
like I used that line for like this line, hold on, watch this, for such a huge part of Celi's life. Like, I'm like, oh, you don't really think so? Watch this. Ta-da. Like, just usually, golly.
Well, and it's like on top of the worry, on top of the, you know, picking which things you can go to and how many things you're going to be doing for the weekend. You know, I know people who kids go to a barbecue in the morning, then they go to baseball in the afternoon, then they hit up, you know, dinner together as a family in the evening, then they go to church the next day. No freaking way we could do that. We have to pick and choose which things we're going to go to. But on top of that, you have to tell people no constantly, or you have to cancel plans last minute because something goes awry, or you've had a 2:30 in the morning wake up, or you're too exhausted to like go somewhere, or just like spend, period. And even for me, like being in my house, I don't have a shower upstairs. I only have a shower in the basement. So even catching a shower is like a danger zone. You know, I have to do it early in the morning, late at night, or I have to figure out how my kids are going to be entertained for literally 7 minutes, which is usually 5 to 7 minutes is as long as I can get by myself. Even that is like challenging. You know, it's just like the daily things that are so hard sometimes, you know, and I love my kids and we always have to say that too. Like if we complain about our children who have a disability or, you know, say things are hard, we always have to preface with, I love my kids so much, which other people don't have to say. Obviously, we love our kids, but it doesn't make any of this easy. The modifications or adjustments, you know,
Exhausting.
It is.
The planning
really
is exhausting. I mean,
Sometimes,
Jamie
like,
just went to Europe. I mean, I couldn't
Yeah.
even imagine.
Well, I know. Well, and I was just thinking about that. You know, a lot of people who I've talked about all the stuff I had to do, like, obviously that was like a thing we wanted to do. It wasn't like didn't have to do it. Like I have to do the school papers or I have to do, like, this was like a thing we chose to do. And so of course you could be like, well, that's your own fault for choosing to do that. So then I also feel like I can't complain, but it is like 10 times harder to do. Like I was just talking to my friend who also has special needs kids, and she was like, how did you like figure out all this stuff? And I was like, well, you know, like just even like getting through the airport, like in the US, we have TSA cares. So I had to like arrange that. And then in Europe, you can usually do the sunflower lanyard, except for one of the airports we was going through was in Dublin. Dublin doesn't do the sunflower lanyard. So you had to send them a doctor's note and get mailed back their special lanyard thing, which is awesome. It's awesome. These programs exist. And I'm not complaining about the programs. It's like, it's just 20 more steps than like,
Yeah.
anyone just taking their kid to Europe would have to do. And just walking around London in that stance I was talking about earlier, like always over my kid. So I just feel like I can't complain sometimes because we do choose things, but then I'm like, well, I can complain because other people can complain. Like I so hate that, like the whole, but I love my child thing. And I don't mind saying I love my child, but people don't have to do that. It's like,
Yeah.
you have to say that we have to apologize or make excuses for complaining when it's like, no, can I just complain about like, yeah, I chose to do this. I'm glad I did it. It turned out way better than I ever thought it would, but it was still ridiculously hard. And I just talking to my husband's cousins tonight. We were at a dinner and he was asking how the trip went. And I was like, yeah, but one day I hope me and Isaac could go back just like for a grown-up trip and I'm like, I don't know if that would ever be able to happen. My son can spend the night at my mother-in-law sometimes, but just this last weekend he spent the night there and they were going to spend the night and then spend the day with her. And he wanted to come home right away. And he had a really hard time for her in the morning. And it's like already in my head, I'm like, well, crap, we're never gonna be able to, you know, like I already think of like how that's going to affect like future like trips. And this wasn't any, like we were at home. He could come home immediately, totally, like, of course, like we were not going to make him stay there. But I was just like, I couldn't imagine ever leaving my son more than one, maybe 2 nights. Me and my husband have done one trip without our kids together. And that was like a work thing that he had. And we went 2 nights and the trip was supposed to be 3 or 4 nights. And I came home early because there was like no way. And that's a privileged thing to take a trip without your kids that not a lot of people get to do, but it's still like the fact that I can't ever freaking do it. Like, it's just like, ugh.
You're not doing it because you can't afford it or because of like all these other reasons. Like,
Well, I can't afford it, but I do it anyway, Kimmy.
I know, but like it's like a choice that's like out of your control that you don't really that you don't have control in making. That's I think what makes it so hard because it's like you can save money, you can make budget cuts, like you can find alternate ways to get places. Like there's things around a lot of the barriers that people don't go on, don't or feel like they can't go on vacation for, but it's like there's no barrier to cross to be able to like not your child not being able to handle not being around you. Like there's no
Well, not even just, sorry, James, even when I was gonna say with you, not even just like the traveling away on vacation with Isaac, it's like the other thing, since we're bitching, is we can't just get a babysitter. Like you can't even just go out for dinner one night if you want to go out for dinner. And what I'm leading into is, people can hire a teenager, because I was watching babysitting since 13 and up, whatever. Jamie, you did a ton of it. I could not, even some of my dearest friends that have teenage kids, man, you got to get off this. You got to pay attention. Like, this is not your average drill here. Like, you know what I mean? You need to, it's just so different.
Part of that thing with my mother-in-law is like, he's usually pretty girl. Like he's had like a couple of like, I wouldn't even say full on meltdowns for her, but like tantrumy like things, but he's always pretty good. And so now my worry is that we've kind of crossed that line where he had a meltdown with her and he had a really rough time with her. Now he kind of knows that he can go that far with her, if that makes sense. And so I'm like, oh no, like now I'm worried that he can't even go with her. And that's like our one person. Like my parents can watch him a little bit too, but like, and of course, like my mother-in-law's great and she's gonna do her best, whatever. But it's like, she's getting older, he's getting older and bigger. And I'm like, oh no, if he gets to the point where once you've crossed a line, like there's kind of no way back from that. And I'm like, did we ruin that even? And so it just scares me. And it's just it was like a simple thing for a sleepover at grandma's house. And it's like, now it's like history thing. And we tried to talk to him about it. And like Tabs was saying, it's like, anytime we were like, hey buddy, can we talk about this? It goes back to the 10. Like, no. And then he does feel bad. He's like, I'm sorry. Like my mother-in-law's not even around. He's like, I'm sorry, Nanas, I'm sorry, like screaming. And it's just like, oh, and And with all this, I want to say, of course, I want to be there for my son. So like if my son can't handle me being away, of course I want to be there with my son to like help him. But just it's hard knowing that I can't ever be away at the same time. Like, and so there's also that chair of me, like, of course I don't want to like put him with someone else when he's that uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So I said, I'm like, how do I explain this to someone? And you ladies, I know you will understand. And it's because there's like no sort of like, there's really no same. Like I had Susan for years that would watch her, but she doesn't watch her anymore. And yes, she can stay with my mom or my sister-in-law. So I'm very fortunate, but there's really not a lot of people past that. And the only way to sort of explain that is it's sort of smothering in a sense of that weight of like, I can't even go get my hair done without getting FaceTime 10 times. Like what, home, Jennifer, come home. Like it's that sort of panic, Yeah, it's tough.
Because our kids, it's like once we do leave or we're gone, then it becomes an antecedent to like other issues and behaviors, because now they're having anxiety that we're going to be gone for as long as we were. Like Kimmy getting in the car to go on that little trip. In Alyssa's mind, she's like, oh, we're driving 20 hours, and it's like, no.
She doesn't, And I don't like she's not been away from me unless I'm gone for work or meeting you ladies. Like I don't just go on vacation and just leave her with somebody. Like I just don't. And my heart, I couldn't. Like I even kind of panic myself when I'm away from her, because it's sort of that like both of us are
connected.
Connected in such a way that I know how she feels when I'm away, so I almost get panicky. So even when I do sort of get a couple hours here and there, which is good for both of us, it's almost like we're both in a panic over it. Does that make sense? So everything is just always so much harder.
Nothing. It's simple, but it's so true. So true.
Like I couldn't imagine just sending her to a sleepover. Like I mean, I don't even know if I had a typical kid, if I'd want my kid going to anyone's house. Like I'm just kind of weird that way. I didn't like being away. I liked having people at my house when I was a kid. I didn't like being at other people's houses. So I'm sure I'm projecting that onto my kid, but
I can't imagine. I mean, like my Nixon could probably stay somewhere else, maybe one night or something, but Nora doesn't sleep in an unfamiliar place. Like she'd be up all night. There's no
person.
That there wouldn't be any. And even when my sister watched them while I was on vacation, she got up at 2:30 in the morning one of the days because it's a weird thing for her. Where's mom? And same thing with the FaceTiming, which I love to see my son, but it was like to relieve his anxiety a bit about me and when I was coming home, and had to reiterate how many days I was going to be gone, and like all of that stuff, which I think some of that is pretty neurotypical for a kiddo to be stressed out when their kids there was parents on vacation, but it's a different kind of like easing the energy, the tension, the stress that they're feeling of you being gone.
Well, it's like there's times when we take turns being gone. So if I travel somewhere, if I call on FaceTime or something, Jesse's gotten a little bit about it, but he would get like mad at me because it would be a reminder that I was gone. And then he'd be like, where are you at? What are you doing? So he wouldn't even FaceTime with me. He's like, what are you thinking?
Have that with respite. Celie is only able to use her phone for the internet or games. She can't call or text on it, and we don't call or text her. So like if there was ever a thing that I needed to tell her, which I wouldn't, we would go through Chris. It wouldn't be we connect with her, because everything's so much a variable. And I think, when you have typical kids, or like I can remember from my own childhood, like there's like anxieties and there's things where like, oh, I'm gone for the night, or this is a different place to sleep, or this might be a different dinner. But when each and every single thing, including the way that the birds sound and the way the wind comes in the door and the way that door slams all the way through, could be super trigger town for X number of hours, days, how long is this going to last? And then what effects do I bring home? Because like one cold bug can leave your whole house for 6 weeks. Sleep problem can leave your whole house messed for a month. Like you're just bordering the all the time. It's never just going to be like a bad half hour,
Well, I find with Alyssa that out of sight, out of mind works best, because
Yeah.
go away. I've wanted to FaceTime her, but it's like,
Yeah, I want
just
to.
don't know how she's going to react. And if she's fine, it's almost like, because my
Don't
daughter said, no, just let her
disrupt
be.
it.
She's fine. She's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and when I went away with when my kids were little, when on our honeymoon, my son, he's neurotypical, but every time my mother said, oh, he's fine until he talks to you. He talks to you,
yes.
he hears your voice, then he starts crying, then he misses us,
Oh,
and
little Neil.
I know. And it's so amplified for our kids because they're the lack of, really understanding and,
Mhm.
it's just so hard for them to really wrap their head around like where we are and how long we're gone. And, they don't really understand it fully. So it just makes it, I think, that much harder.
The other thing that gets me about this whole thing, like everything that we're talking about, is I get jealous of other people who, you get those moments of jealousy and,
Moments.
dropping your expectations of how your life is and whatever. But the other part of it, the flip side of it is like, I feel so bad for my kids that it's so hard for them
Mhm.
to be out in the world.
Exist. Yeah.
It's just,
I always say the world's not designed for kids like ours. They have
It's
to
just-
exist in a world that is not
Uh,
designed for them.
and just
And it-
being that dysregulated, and like, I know how I feel when I get uber upset or whatever, just to have that inability to release that kind of energy within your body on repeat, just for something as simple as like not being able to climb into a creek at the park. I mean, that's not
Right.
simple, but you know what I mean? Like that threw off the
Yeah.
entire,
The whole day.
yeah, the whole day.
and to build upon that, Tabitha, is like, for us, it's hard because it's like, then the siblings are being affected.
Yeah.
They're not able to do something that
Yeah.
they're looking forward to and it's supposed to be fun for them.
Yeah.
It turns into something that's not fun or stressful or it's chaotic, even if it's like when you go, leaving for vacation or whatever it might be. And then I feel like I'm like trying to like just like, navigate, trying to keep everybody calm. I'm frustrated and aggravated, but I'm trying to like not show it because
Mhm.
I'm trying to like de-escalate her, de-escalate them, trying to make sure that nobody else is setting her off more unnecessarily. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like this, and then I'm not having I'm not having a good time.
Yeah.
It's just it's so much, and it's just so unfair to everybody. It's unfair to her because in Alyssa's situation is like she just can't communicate. So whatever she's frustrated about or whatever she's upset about, she can't let us know. And literally sometimes it's just nothing. I feel like sometimes she's just picking something to be upset about because she needs something to like
The
channel that
moving
focus
target.
onto,
Mhm.
but other times it could be something, and you're looking and you're pointing and you're just trying to figure. It happened a couple times when we were driving to South Carolina, then we're just like, we just don't know. And yes, she did awesome. She really did so awesome on that trip. Like, but there's always, no matter how awesome it is, there's always autism moments. There's always
Yeah.
communication things or anxiety things, and they're not, the good is really outweighing those moments, but in the time
Of
that those
course. Yeah.
moments are happening,
Mhm.
it's just difficult because you're
Mhm.
like, okay, we're just trying to go to the beach or we're just trying to
Mhm.
navigate, whatever it is that we're trying to navigate. I feel like when when someone's like, oh, how was vacation? You're like, oh, it was great. It's like, oh, but there was moments still. There was many, many
Yeah.
moments. But like, I mean, for us, I choose not to focus on those things. It doesn't mean if I say it's great that there were no moments. There's always moments. It's hard for everybody. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can I
Like
interrupt?
Lexi goes, never again today. I go, you're starting to sound like your father.
Never
Like,
again.
never again. That's what he always says. I'm like, oh my God.
You can want to say never again, but we're going again. We're going to do this again.
We're tired, people.
Yeah.
We're
We're
tired.
tired and we're bitching. So, yeah.
We hope you enjoy us
Yeah.
complaining
I mean,
because we're
pretty
allowed to,
uplifting.
as mothers, we're allowed to complain that things are hard. I'm just gonna say that. And it's not always hard. I mean,
Mm,
I'm saying it's not always feels hard, should I say. Like we have our moments of like, this is
Yes.
beautiful, this experience is amazing, like all of those things. This episode is not for that.
This is not your uplifting.
Go listen to a different series.
Listen.
Well,
look
and
to these
sometimes we
people.
don't even realize that it's hard. Like we
Yeah,
don't even
that-
until
yeah.
we're like, oh, it's not like this for everybody. And then we
Right.
Oh, that has a Lululemon little drop thing around her. I have a freaking backpack that weighs 15, but my back hurts from it. I have strap marks, all the
Power
things.
bank,
Yes.
all things.
Goldfish.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah. Because I'm just going to bitch forever. So have a great night, everyone. It's going to keep going. The bag.
Watch out
Good
for our
night.
next Tired as a Mother episode. 'cause
Tired
we'll need
as
to
a mother.
We're
stream
a real
that.
treat.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
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 Thank you for joining us at the table for this episode of the Table for Five No Reservations podcast. Big thank you to all of our supporters. If you would like to become a supporter, please check out the description of this episode, where you will also find episode information, how to sign up for our newsletter, and find links to us individually. Join us next Monday for more, and while you wait, check out our content on Facebook and Instagram. If you are enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and rate and review us wherever you listen. To contact us, you can email us at tablefor5podcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next week. Can't wait to sit with you again.